It was the darkest moment of his life. The world had collapsed around him, and all he could see were the walls closing in. Fear was his only companion, gripping him tightly, suffocating every ounce of hope. He had a choice, though, a choice that could change everything. In the blink of an eye, his future could be sealed or destroyed. There, standing on the precipice of his greatest challenge, he could hear the voices of doubt screaming louder than ever before. They told him to back down. They told him to walk away. But something deep inside him whispered, "Face your fear and do it anyway." But the question remained, could he? His name was Dave, just a regular guy, or so he thought. He had a steady job, a family, and a routine that he followed without ever questioning it. But there was something inside him that he couldn't ignore, a deep yearning, a nagging feeling that he was meant for more. One day, everything changed. His job was outsourced. Just like that, the life he had built for himself crumbled. The walls, the routine, the comfort, all of it was gone. Fear flooded his heart. The unknown was terrifying. He didn't have the answers. Dave had to make a decision. Would he cower in the face of fear, or would he rise above it, facing the terrifying unknown with unwavering courage? It wasn't a lack of fear that he needed to worry about. It was what he would do with that fear. Fear was inevitable. It was always going to be there. But how he chose to respond was where the power lay. But here's the thing. Could Dave truly face his fear? Could he move forward into the unknown? Or would fear be his final master? That's the thing about fear. It's a liar. It tells you that you're not enough. It tells you that failure is imminent, and that everything you hold dear will be ripped away. But what if that wasn't the truth? What if, instead of being controlled by fear, you could use it as a catalyst for growth? Dave had a choice, and so do you. Every person experiences fear at some point in their lives. It might be the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, or the fear of stepping into the unknown. But let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how the things that scare you the most often turn out to be the things that transform you? Fear is a signal. It's a signal that you're standing on the edge of something powerful. If you're not afraid, then maybe you're not growing. Maybe you're not challenging yourself enough. Dave was about to find out that on the other side of fear was something he could never have imagined. He was going to learn something profound about fear. It's not the enemy, it's the doorway. Fear comes to you when you're about to do something incredible, and it shows up to test your commitment. It's there to make sure you truly want to succeed. It whispers doubts and plays on your insecurities. But the key is this: you don't need to silence the fear. You simply need to push through it. Dave had never realized it before, but he was on the verge of a breakthrough. The discomfort, the anxiety, the sweat running down his back. It was all part of the process. And as he faced his fear head-on, he discovered something extraordinary. Fear didn't disappear, but it lost its power over him. It was as if the moment he took that first step, the ground beneath him solidified, the path became clearer, and the air felt lighter. Fear was still there, but now it was working for him, not against him. Dave was learning that you can't wait for fear to disappear. You have to face it. And when you do, something miraculous happens. You realize that you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined. But there was one more thing Dave needed to do. One more leap of faith he had to take. And it wasn't going to be easy. Could he take that step? Could he trust the process? Dave was standing at the crossroads. The fear that had held him hostage for so long had been transformed. He had faced it. He had moved forward. And the rewards were starting to show. But what would he do now? The next step was the hardest. It wasn't about climbing mountains or achieving success. It was about truly believing that he was worthy of the journey. The question wasn't, will I make it? The question was, will I believe I can? And that's the key, belief. It wasn't the external circumstances that mattered. It was what he believed about himself and his ability to keep going despite the fear. Dave closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He felt the fear again. But this time, it didn't control him. He was ready to face it and do it anyway. You, too, have that same power. The moment you face fear and keep moving, your life changes forever. So what's holding you back? Fear? Or are you ready to take that first step into the unknown? If you're tired of letting fear run your life, it's time to change. Take a step today. Face that fear, no matter how big or small. Whatever it is that has been stopping you from taking action, do it anyway. Break through the walls of fear and see what lies on the other side. You are capable of greatness, and the only thing standing between you and the life you want is your willingness to face fear and do it anyway. This is your moment. Make it count. Dave had taken that first step, the one that terrified him to his core. But now, as he looked back on what he'd overcome, a new fear crept in, one that was even more insidious than the doubt he had left behind. This time, it wasn't failure that haunted him. It was success. As he stood at the edge of his new life, something strange happened. The success he had worked so hard for, the success he had once longed for, suddenly seemed overwhelming. What would it mean for him to actually make it? The voices inside his head grew louder. What if you can't handle it? What if you don't deserve it? What if success changes you in ways you can't control? The fear of failing had faded, but now there was a fear of succeeding, a fear that had nothing to do with failure. It was about what success might require of him. Could he handle this? Could he step into the success he had always dreamed of? Or would it crush him under its weight? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Dave had worked tirelessly for years, chasing the dream that had been just out of his reach. And now he had it. But every time he thought about taking the next step, whether it was asking for that promotion, launching his own business, or fully committing to the life he had built, the fear gripped him tighter. The fear of losing himself in the very success he had been seeking. Dave had seen people who reached their dreams only to have them slip away. He had heard stories of people who became lost in their success, swallowed by expectations, or even worse, rejected by the very thing they had worked for. What if he became someone he didn't recognize? What if his friends and family turned their backs on him because he had changed? What if the price of success was too high? But here was the most terrifying question of all. What if the real fear wasn't failure, but becoming the person he was meant to be? Success doesn't just change your circumstances. It changes you. And Dave wasn't sure he was ready for that transformation. The fear of success is more common than you might think. It's a fear that keeps you playing small, even when you know you're meant for more. You may not even realize you're holding yourself back, but inside, a quiet voice tells you that success might require more than you're willing to give. You may have heard the saying, you're only as good as your last success. And in many ways, that's true. But what if, instead of fearing that you'll fall short, you learn to embrace that success can be as overwhelming as it is rewarding? Dave had to face the truth. Success wasn't a destination. It was a continuous journey that required growth, adaptation, and a willingness to change. It wasn't a one-time achievement. It was the beginning of something new. And the fear of that newness was what held him back. Dave learned that success is not a finish line. It's a process. And that process doesn't always fit neatly into the life you've imagined. He had to trust that he could handle what was coming. He had to believe that even when success pushed him into uncharted waters, he would survive and thrive. But there was a twist to this. As Dave continued on his journey, he discovered something he hadn't anticipated. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. In the quiet moments of reflection, Dave realized that the key to overcoming his fear of success wasn't control it, but to surrender to it. You see, the greatest gift of success is the freedom it gives you. Freedom to evolve, to grow, and to embrace the fullness of who you're meant to become. The fear of success disappears when you stop trying to control everything and simply allow yourself to step into your true potential. Dave made a choice. He wouldn't hide from his future. He wouldn't shrink in the face of success. Instead, he would embrace it fully, knowing that his worth was not tied to his achievements, but to his ability to face fear and do it anyway. That's when Dave truly began to soar. It wasn't the success itself that gave him peace. It was the acceptance of what success required. You, too, can do the same. Are you ready to face your fear of success? Are you prepared to step into the life that's waiting for you? The world needs what you have to offer, but you have to be willing to embrace the discomfort, the unknown, and the growth that comes with it. Don't let the fear of success hold you back. Step into the greatness that you are meant to experience. Take a step today. Face your fear. Do it anyway, and embrace the transformation that will take you to places you've never dreamed. But here's the real kicker. As Dave's success continued to grow, something unexpected began to happen. He found himself standing at another crossroads. This time, the fear wasn't about failure or success. It was about something deeper, something even more personal, and it would require him to look at himself in a way he never had before. Dave had conquered the fear of failure, and he had learned to embrace the overwhelming power of success. But there was something even more profound lurking in the shadows, a fear that no one had warned him about. This fear was different. It wasn't about the external challenges he faced. It was about what success had done to him and what he had become in the process. He had climbed the ladder one step at a time, but with each rung he ascended, something inside him shifted. The person he was when he started no longer felt like the person he had become. Success had forced him to confront a version of himself he wasn't sure he even recognized. Could he truly handle the man he was becoming, or would he lose himself in the very success he had fought so hard to achieve? As Dave's success story unfolded, so did his internal battle. At first, the changes were subtle. He noticed that people treated him differently. They respected him more, sought his advice, and admired his journey. But as the admiration grew, so did the pressure, the expectations, the eyes that were always watching, waiting for him to slip. With every step forward, Dave felt a growing distance between the person he had been and the person he was becoming. Success, as beautiful and rewarding as it was, had its price, and that price was a sense of self. He was no longer just Dave. He was now a brand, an image, a story that others wanted to buy into. But the most disturbing part was that Dave wasn't sure he liked the new version of himself. He had become a man he always dreamed of being. Yet in the quiet moments, there was a haunting question he couldn't shake. Who was the real Dave anymore? For the first time, Dave wasn't afraid of failure, nor was he afraid of success. He was afraid of losing the very essence of who he was. He feared that in his pursuit of greatness, he had traded away his authenticity for approval, his true self for recognition. But there was a way out, wasn't there? Dave's fear wasn't unique. It's a fear that many people face on the path to success. The fear of losing yourself. We all want success. We all want to be recognized for our efforts, our talents, our hard work. But when that success begins to change you, when the world starts to see you differently than you see yourself, the fear can be overwhelming. It's like a mirror that no longer reflects who you really are. So, what do you do when success forces you to confront the person you become? How do you stay true to yourself while still achieving everything you've ever wanted? The answer is simple. You must redefine success on your own terms. Dave had to learn that success wasn't just about achieving external goals. It was about aligning his actions, his beliefs, and his heart with the person he truly wanted to be. True success comes from living authentically, not from fulfilling the expectations of others or chasing fleeting approval. Dave realized that the key to overcoming this fear was embracing the idea that success wasn't a destination. It was a journey. And along that journey, he had the power to reshape himself, to grow into the person he wanted to be, not the person others thought he should be. He didn't have to sacrifice his soul for his success. He just needed to stay grounded, to remember who he was before the world began to change him. And with that realization came clarity. Dave could still be successful and still be himself. But it wasn't going to be easy. The fear of losing himself was still there, lurking, ready to strike at the next corner. In the end, it was a simple, yet powerful choice that Dave had to make. He had to decide whether he would allow his success to define him, or if he would define his own success. One day, in the midst of his busy life, Dave found himself sitting alone in a quiet park, away from the noise, away from the expectations. It was there that he found the answer. Success, he realized, wasn't about constantly chasing the approval of others. It was about being true to yourself, even when the world demands something different. And so, he made a promise to himself. He would keep climbing, keep achieving, but he would never lose sight of the person he truly was. The man who started this journey was still in him, and the key to everything was to allow both versions, the one who had dreams and the one who had achieved them, to coexist. Dave understood now that success wasn't about perfection. It was about integration, integrating the person he had been with the person he was becoming, and that integration would be his greatest achievement. What about you? Are you afraid of losing yourself on the path to success? Are you afraid that in your pursuit of greatness, you'll forget who you are? I challenge you to face that fear today. Redefine success for yourself. Embrace the journey, but don't lose sight of your soul along the way. Success is a beautiful thing, but only when it aligns with who you truly are. So, take a step today. Embrace who you are and let your success reflect the person you were always meant to be. You're on a journey, and it's time to make it your own. But here's the thing. As Dave continued to grow, as he began to redefine success for himself, he realized something even deeper. There was one last fear, one that loomed over him, waiting to be faced. What if, after all of this, he wasn't enough? The fear of not being enough could cripple anyone. But could Dave face it head-on? Could he prove to himself that he was, in fact, worthy of everything he had achieved? Dave had faced failure. He had embraced success, and had confronted the fear of losing himself along the way. But now, standing at the peak of everything he'd worked for, there was one final question that haunted him. A question that seemed to rise above all others, a fear that felt insurmountable. What if, after everything, he wasn't enough? This was the most terrifying fear of all, because it wasn't about circumstances. It wasn't about success or failure. It was a deeply personal fear, rooted in the belief that no matter how hard he tried, no matter what he achieved, he might never truly feel like he was good enough. He had spent his life proving himself to others, but now, standing in the spotlight of his success, he realized something powerful. He had never stopped seeking approval. Approval from his family, approval from his colleagues, approval from society. But what if he could never give himself that approval? Could success, in the end, ever fill the emptiness inside him? Was he ever truly going to feel like he was enough? The fear of not being enough. It's a fear that many people carry with them, whether they realize it or not. We live in a world that constantly measures us by our achievements, our status, our image. We're told that in order to be valuable, we need to keep pushing for more, climbing higher, and being better than everyone else. But what if that's a lie? Dave's life had been a continuous pursuit of success, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was still chasing something elusive. All his achievements, all his recognition, felt like they weren't enough to fill the void he had carried for so long. This was the moment when Dave had to face his biggest fear. That success alone would never make him feel whole. He had everything he ever wanted, the respect, the admiration, the career, the financial freedom. But somehow, none of it had cured his inner doubt. The question gnawed at him day and night, stealing his peace of mind. Was I enough? And then, in the quiet of the night, a realization hit him like a lightning bolt. He had been looking for validation in all the wrong places. Here's the thing. We all want to feel like we matter. We want to feel validated. And we often tie our worth to our external achievements, to what we do rather than who we are. But the truth is, you are enough just as you are, not because of anything you've done, but because of who you are. Dave's greatest lesson wasn't about climbing higher or achieving more. It was about learning to accept himself exactly as he was. It was about understanding that his worth wasn't tied to his accomplishments, his bank account, or his reputation. It was tied to the fact that he was human, imperfect, flawed, but worthy of love and success nonetheless. Dave had spent so much of his life chasing external success to prove his worth that he had neglected to nurture the belief that he was already enough. He had been waiting for validation from the world, but the truth was, he had to validate himself first. The moment Dave accepted that he was enough, without needing anyone's approval, that's when everything shifted. He stopped seeking outside validation and started building his self-worth from the inside out. In that moment, Dave's fear dissolved. The fear of not being enough had held him captive for far too long. But once he realized that his value wasn't defined by success, but by who he was at his core, he found peace. Dave knew now that he didn't have to keep proving himself to anyone. He was worthy, regardless of the outcome. Dave stood there, looking at his reflection in the mirror. He saw a man who had worked hard, faced his fears, and achieved remarkable success. But more importantly, he saw a man who was learning to embrace his own worth. Success no longer felt like a battle to prove himself. It felt like a celebration of the person he had become. He understood now that true success isn't about accumulating wealth or status. It's about living authentically, accepting yourself fully, and giving yourself the permission to feel worthy without needing external validation. It was then that Dave realized the greatest gift of all. He was already enough. And in that realization, he felt a peace that he had been searching for his entire life. The fear of not being enough no longer had a hold on him. He could move forward now, free from the weight of doubt. What about you? Do you feel like you're enough? Or are you still seeking validation from others, from your career, or from your accomplishments? I challenge you to take a step back today and ask yourself this simple question. Do I believe that I am enough? You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You are worthy just as you are. Your journey doesn't need to be about proving your worth to the world. It's about embracing your true self and realizing that you're enough without needing anyone's approval. Take a moment today to reflect on your own worth. Accept yourself fully without judgment and let that acceptance propel you to even greater heights. You are worthy of all the success, happiness, and peace that life has to offer. You are enough. As Dave walked away from the mirror, he felt lighter than he had in years. The chains of fear, self-doubt, and unworthiness had been shattered. He was ready to live a life where he no longer needed to prove himself, because he had already proven to himself that he was enough. And that, my friend, is where true freedom begins. This is the final lesson. You are enough. And when you believe that, everything changes.